Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Fred Favors, and welcome once again to Harvesting Greatness on this Saturday afternoon. Today, a special report on the State of the Union for Black America. Oh, yeah, these numbers are going to astound you, and you're going to... This situation that happened in Minnesota with George Floyd, the murder of Mr. Floyd in Minnesota. We first want to send our heartfelt condolences out to the family because you know that they're hurting. The little ones, the kids, are hurting, having to see this murder happen right in front of their eyes on television. But we've got the State of the Union coming up in Black America on this podcast, and we're going to look at some things because what the Floyd murder does is this. It exposes the institutionalized hate that exists in this country. You see, black people have terrorists coming on them from the outside, which is some of the terrorism that goes on that in this country from groups in different countries that want to bring harm to this country. But we also have to watch out for terrorism inside this country from individuals who would want to harm us. And sometimes it's our own people. Yeah, sometimes it's our own people that want to terrorize us. So we have to understand that we've got systemic problems in this country. A lot of them come from the white hate that we have been seeing throughout the years, but a lot of it comes from the culture that we've allowed to seep into our homes and seep into our lives and rob us of what God is trying to deliver to us. Oh yeah, I'm speaking to you, Black America. I'm speaking to you because you allow the education system in our country, K through 12, if you look at where it ranks national or within the countries around America, the most industrialized countries, you will see that out of the top 50, we rank 27th in math, 24th, I think, in reading. Science, we're in the 20-something. The top countries are Korea. The top countries are Japan. The top countries are Asian countries. And I live in Southern California, and who do you see doing most of the building of companies out here? The Asians, the Koreans. They're in the top 5 in education. So while we're toting basketballs around, they're toting books around. We actually own less wealth today. In 2020, we own less wealth today than we did in the early 1900s. We owned a lot of land in the early 1900s. We eventually lost that land. It will be taken away. But we owned more land, more wealth back then than we own today. That's a tragedy. When you look around and see so much money being made by the Oprahs and the Bill Cosbys and the athletes, Michael Jordan, you would think that we have more wealth today than we had back then, but it is not true. So how far have we really come? Our education system is producing a permanent underclass. You saw the movie Lean on Me with Morgan Freeman playing Crazy Joe. Well, he talked about that. He says it has been determined that you are a permanent underclass, and it has been set up that way. The schools are set up to produce a permanent underclass. So our students go through 12 years of school, 6 hours a day, studying things that they will never need in real life. When they get to real life, they're not ready for the life that they will see. So that's one issue. The George Floyd issue, it exposes the Ahmaud Arbery issue in Georgia, exposes the truth of where we really are as a country. Remember the Homestead Act of 1862. You may not remember that. It was an act that was passed to give land to whites who wanted to farm, and it gave them land to build schools and colleges. That's a pretty good head start. For blacks, they passed the 40 acres and a mule. I think it was field order number 15, the promise of land. But when Lincoln died, Andrew Johnson took over for Lincoln as president, and he's a Southern Democrat, and he would have none of that. He rescinded that order to give blacks 40 acres and a mule, so that was taken away. So we've been through years and years of struggle, institutionalized struggle. But the education system is a system that's been set up to deliver a permanent underclass. Our culture has changed. We don't have the same culture that our forefathers had in the early 1800s, 1900s. Their culture was different. Ours, we want to be and look like we're special. We want to be and look like we have attained all that life is worth. We want to look and feel like we've achieved the American dream. They didn't care about that. They didn't care. They worked night and day together, husband and wife, in the field when they were free. They didn't have time to go look at new BMWs or go to the latest nightclub. It wasn't on their agenda. Our culture has changed, ladies and gentlemen. So we are our own worst enemy. We're expecting the schools to educate our kids when back in the day, the father and mother took the onus of educating their kids. They educated them at home. They didn't expect the schools. There were no schools for most of these individuals that we talk about. In our Black History highlights, we talk about great individuals like Junius George Glover, Annie Malone, Madam C.J. Walker. None of these individuals had formal schooling like is available today. How did they make it when they lived in worse times? That's something we have to ask ourselves. So the State of the Union address for African Americans, our school systems are developing a permanent underclass. How can we combat it? By setting up school in your house, teaching your kids. If you don't know, the internet is available to them, teaching them about real money, real wealth, teaching them about finance. If you don't know it yourself, there's the internet. They can get the information from the internet. All types of ways they can get information. If they stop wasting hours and time doing the things that they're doing, they can spend that time on educating themselves, because if they don't, the world will swallow them, chew them up and spit them out. There's nothing for them if they don't. If we allow our schools to continue to educate our kids without stepping in and saying, you do your job, but we're going to do ours. We're going to fill in the gaps that you don't fill. History, we're going to take care of that at home. Black history. Most Black Americans believe that our history started after slavery. That's not true. So we don't know who we are totally. Our school systems are shot, but we allow them to continue to educate our kids. The sports programs, we have college football. Well, it's another way we take wealth away from African Americans, because we don't give them anything. We give them a college degree, which is worth, well, come on. We give them a college degree, which a lot of them don't get. They're playing football for your major universities, while the major universities are making billions of dollars. After 4 years, the kids are told, okay, if you have any younger brothers, give us a call. While the schools are making billions of dollars on these athletes. The schools are able to take that wealth that they get, trickle it down to the guys on the top. And years and years and years and years, they continue this process. The wealth gets, trickled down to the family members for years and years, while the athletes that are contributing to this wealth being attained by these people are told your 4 years are up, and most of you won't make the NFL, most of you won't make the NBA, but, hopefully you can get a good job in your hometown if there's something available. You can use us as a reference. These athletes are given nothing for the incredible time and work that they do to build these institutions through sports. Another problem we have that we're overlooking, but nothing is said about it. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, and LeBron James signed a bill because it's unfortunate that these major universities are trying to hide behind the Constitution and say it's unconstitutional to pay the players in college. You can pay the coach $2 million, $3 million a year, but it's unconstitutional to pay the players. You can make $1 billion a year through stadium contracts and TV contracts and all the like, shoe contracts. And all you can tell the athlete is, you got a college scholarship, be a teacher, be a good high school teacher, go back there and your community needs you. While they rake in the millions. That is an incredible situation. That is institutionalized racism at its best. So as the George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery situations have shocked and rocked this country, we've got some issues that we need to address. Instead of burning down buildings, which is what we have been seeing African Americans do in various cities, why not sit down with your families and talk about how we need to come together as people to educate ourselves, to build our communities. We can't depend on the schools to educate us. We can't depend on the government to take care of us. That's not going to happen. What we need to understand is there is an agenda that we need to subscribe to. Call it a code of ethics. But the culture that's being attained today by Black America is the reason that we're in the situation that we're in today. It's the culture of entertainment. The stars like Beyonce, nothing against Beyonce, nothing against any of these entertainers, nothing against the actors, nothing against them. Do what you do and be great at it. But when you become our leaders instead of engineers, when they become our spokespersons instead of individuals who are like a Junius George Glover. He was a farmer living in the 1800s, 1900s, early 1900s. Became very wealthy as a farmer, worked day and night with his wife to build a farm and maybe wealth that they could pass on to future generations. That type of character is what we need to bring back into our society today. The heroes need to be the engineers and the architects and the scientists and the astronauts and the doctors. They need to be the heroes, not the sports stars that we worship today. So the state of the union as far as African Americans in this country, we are a long way from where we need to be. But George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, their deaths should not be in vain. If we don't come together now, and just as important for white America to see wrong and not speak on it, God will deal with that. Preachers, Joel Osteen, I'm not down on preachers, but I'm not hearing any of our preachers come out and speak about this tragedy. So the special report on the State of the Union in Black America, this is going to help us come together. If it doesn't, it's going to be the darkest day. The darkest days are yet to come. If this doesn't bring Black America together, if this doesn't bring white America with Black America, because yes, there are individuals that are, you're not going to get them on your team. They don't like Black America. You're not going to get them to all of a sudden change their way. They have not liked us. Their daddies didn't like us. Their daddies before them didn't like us. And that beat goes on. But there's others out there that are willing to work with African Americans. There was others in the 1800s that were willing to work with African Americans. In the 1900s, many whites willing to work with African Americans to build a great country. And they're here in this country today. I speak to you to speak out about this tragedy in Minnesota. Yeah, Floyd may have been breaking the law with the counterfeit bill. Yeah, but did he deserve what he got? Does any man deserve to be treated like that, to be killed on the street in front of your family? Better is expected from you, America. Better is expected from you. And if you can go around the world and teach and speak to other countries about their human rights violations, you better damn well take care of the human rights at home first. Harvesting Greatness will be back next week. We'll talk about Junius George Glover. He was a black history hero and one of my favorites. They called him the Potato King of America, and he came from slavery with 90 cents in his pocket. How did he do it? Next week on Harvesting Greatness.